Hey there, my friend. Steve Gamlin here. Welcome to the Motivational Firewood Radio Show. We have got a barn burner of a guest today. This is a gentleman that is about 5,000 miles away from where I live. He's over in the UK, but we are like brothers in humor and laughter and in caring for people. Today's guest is Barry Taylor. Barry is the founder of Laugh Therapy. He is a gelotologist, and I had to look this up. Gelotologist, a trainer, a speaker, education and healthcare. He does positive workplace solutions and helps to infuse laughter, humor, and amazing emotions into everything he does. Barry, welcome to the Motivational Firewood Radio Show.
It's great to chat with you, Steve. Thanks very much. Nice introduction. That made me sound really important.
Hey, I used all the big words. I got the check and I got the little,
Yeah,
thing. I,
absolutely.
I heard you pay by the adjective, so I wanted to take advantage of that. Pay a
Yeah.
little ahead on the mortgage here for the house. So
Yeah.
now you and I connected over LinkedIn, and this is something I love about social media is where so many people are out there, and we see this. There's good and bad in the world, good and bad energy, good and bad people, behavior, mindsets, etc. You and I hang in the coolest rooms, in the coolest groups, in the coolest corners of social media. And that's how we met. We saw humor, laughter, motivation, positivity, and we're like, yeah, we got to connect. So, if you
Yeah.
recall exactly the moment of how you and I connected and why we're
Yeah. What happened was I'm not great with social media, and I set up this business, Laugh Therapy, which we'll obviously talk about. But I realized that I hadn't really got an audience. I got people contacting me saying, would you be interested in doing this kind of workshop and so on? And that was great. But I realized there was a point where I needed to go out and find business. So I unsuccessfully worked my way around Facebook and Twitter and so on. I thought LinkedIn is really the professional one to look at. So I went on there and I looked for different, different businesses and business leads. And I thought, I need to find my tribe. I don't know anybody that does what I do. So I kind of scrapped the idea of finding business and just thought I need to find people like me. So I put in words like, laughter and humor and comedy and anything that was kind of closely related to what I do, wellness, well-being. And you were one of the people that popped up. And so I just kind of introduced myself to everybody. Said, hi, I'm Barry. I think I do something similar to you. And the conversations start from there. And so it's been really good. I mean, we've spoken a few times now, and it's just been really good to connect because it's amazing how many people that you meet whose lives run in parallel and have so many connections, despite there being a huge pond between us.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned laughter yoga in there. And in one of our previous conversations, I mentioned, oh, I know somebody over here who had done some laughter yoga events. And I kind of looked at a little demo of it. And to me, it was so forced. Now, I come from a stand-up comedy background, a radio rock morning show background, comedy writer, producer, stand-up comedian, etc. And I sat there watching this and I thought, you got to work a little harder. You don't just tell me to laugh and get a good, honest to God laugh with all the
Yeah.
benefits from me. So, how do you do what you do, and what are some of the strengths and maybe challenges you see out there that people are having that this can help them?
Yeah. I mean, I got into laughter as a well-being, a wellness tool because I'd realised through my own journey through life that laughter has so many therapeutic benefits, and I kind of wanted to investigate that. I thought there's a job in that. My background's in education, but a lot of what I used to do as an educator was play, fun, laughter related. Just that was my educational style. So I kind of investigated that. I'd done a lot of research when I was at university into humor and laughter and the origins of it, and stumbled across laughter yoga as on my journey, and thought I'll subscribe to a few of these. And I know what you mean. I've done a few workshops before where there's been laughter yoga taking place, and people have that initial 10, 15 minutes at the start where there's a kind of resistance there because they're often with a group of strangers and being asked to laugh in a forced way that doesn't feel in any way genuine or mirthful. What I find fascinating about it is that the genuine laughter does follow, because one of the scientific things I've found is that although our ears are tuned into fake laughter, we can hear when someone's fake laughing and can identify that. Our brains can't identify when we fake laugh ourselves. So our brain doesn't know if we're faking it to make it. So I think the idea behind the laughter yoga is that you participate in fake laughter to start with, that then produces the genuine laughter that creates the connections between the other people in the room. But it's getting through those first 10 or 15 minutes that I think is the challenge for a lot of people. But I totally agree with what you say, that the mirthful laughter, the genuine belly laughter, the head back screaming, and you clearly has more benefits because your diaphragm's really working, your lungs are pumping. There's far more going on there physically than there is if you're the kind of forced laughter that you would start off with. So on my journey to creating my own kind of programs and workshops, I like to take bits of these things and influences, and the study that's gone behind those things, but integrate more genuine ways to get to that mirthful laughter straight away or early on, so that you haven't got that resistance from people who perhaps but it might be something that's been booked by HR for me to come in, and they don't know what they're taking part in, and immediately think I'm not doing this, and the barriers go up straight away, which makes it really challenging then to break that down. If you're going in there, right, we're going to play some games today, let's see what comes out of that, and you weave the education into it, and as they're playing and participating, they realize, oh, there's some benefit going on here. You've kind of sneakily got them to the same end, but without them feeling in any way self-conscious.
Yeah, in my speaking style and my coaching style as well are pretty much the same way. Is, you know, a lot of storytelling, a lot of humor woven into the lessons. And I've had people come up at the end and say, "Oh my gosh, I was so caught up in the story, I didn't realize you actually taught me something."
Yeah.
And in the energy, it's, I call it playing volleyball. You know, I put something out,
Yeah.
their energy comes back, I get a laugh, drop a lesson, and it's very scientific what you and I do. Now, we don't necessarily explain what's happening to the people in the moment, but there's a lot of science going on. So for anybody that might be wondering right now, like, oh yeah, laughter is fine, laughter is good, I laughed once or twice today. What are the physical and emotional benefits to us for including humor and laughter as part of our regular day, you know, at work, at home,
Yeah.
strangers on a subway? There are some, you know, hidden camera social experiments going on out there as well.
Yeah, they're multiple. I wrote down some statistics because I find that there's the research is growing. In the past, most of the research that's gone on to how the brain works tended to focus on the more negative aspects of mental health and not necessarily focusing on the positives. So it's only really been, I would say, in the last 50, 60 years, Professor William Fry was probably he came up with the word gelotology, was the word that you introduced me with at the beginning. He came up with that phrase. And a lot of the research kind of stems from there. So looking at the physiological side of laughter to start off with, laughter exercises your internal organs, and 15 minutes of laughter a day is as good for the heart as 30 minutes of exercise 3 times a week. The fact that it you know, the way that it exercises the organs, oxygenates the body, blood flow around the body. It increases our heart rate. It reduces bad cholesterol by 66%, they found in studies, and raises our good cholesterol by 26%. So it does that straight away. It increases our blood flow by 22%. Stress reduces our blood flow by 35%. So again, it's doing that to our body straight away. Blood vessels, they widen by 50% when laughing, which helps to oxygenate the brain and the body. It releases neuropeptides, which lower blood pressure, and it strengthens breathing and lung function. So all of that is going on physiologically. Now, psychologically, what happens when we're stressed and we're anxious? We produce chemicals like cortisol, epinephrine, which is adrenaline, growth hormones. All of those are chemicals that make us tense, creates that fight or flight, makes us anxious. When we laugh, those receptors lock off. We stop producing those. But at the same time, we open the receptors which produce positive endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, melatonin, and gamma waves. All of these things make us feel better, safer, deal with stress better, deal with anxiety, make us more creative, etc. So it's locking off the bad stuff and releasing all the good stuff, which is, you know, laughter's doing that. I mean, a lot of other things can do that. Music can do that. Exercise can do that. Sex can do that, apparently. um, you know, so there are lots of things that can do that, but laughter is probably the easiest and free to get. Pain management. They found that less pain medication was required from people who participated in laughter programs. So what happens when we laugh? We release a chemical called encephalin. It's a natural tranquilizer. It's 10 times more effective than morphine as a painkiller. And we produce that. We can naturally produce that. When we laugh, we reduce inflammation in the body. It relaxes muscles for about 45 minutes after a good hearty laugh. So if you're suffering from arthritis, swelling in the joints, laughter's really good for you as well. Now, gamma waves, one of the things I mentioned before, that's something that we produce when we meditate, and it creates calmness, focus, alertness. It improves our memory. It improves creativity, problem solving, etc. We produce that when we laugh as well. So imagine what these things can do in schools for creating creativity, problem solving, memory, in the workplace, making workplaces more productive. If we make classrooms more enjoyable, more fun, more laughter based, and we do that in the workplace, not only do we feel better, but we're so much more productive, more engaged, more connected. So there's no better advert for laughter really in terms of what it can do for us personally, but also connecting with each other as well. So there's a few facts. I'll throw in a few more in a bit.
Yeah, no, those are great. Those are great. And as you're doing that, I'm taking notes in my head. I'm like, okay, start listening to stand-up comedy routines while exercising. You know, I'm going to
Yeah.
drop the last 15 pounds and get six-pack abs by laughing while I'm walking my mile and on the Peloton cycle in the world. Actually, I don't want to laugh on the Peloton cycle. I'll wind up on the floor, but that might not be a good idea. But definitely including humor and laughter. And one of the lessons I share with my speaking and coaching clients actually comes from one of my books, which was technically written by a dog named Super Teddy. And it's tip number 2 in the book. And it says, wake up every morning and wag yourself happy, meaning intentionally put something positive in your mind, in your heart, in your mouth, as far as your food consumption. But to wake up every day in either laugh or be inspired or have hope or be grateful or something. Now, I'm one of those people. I wake up every day and I want to find something to laugh about. So the first thing I do is following Mel Robbins, who's a very well-known speaker and coach. She has these 2 rules. The 5-second rule, which means I shut off my alarm clock within 5 beeps, count down from 5, put both feet on the floor, lean back, kiss my wife Tina on the cheek, get up, walk into the bathroom, and high-five myself in the mirror. And even if one little corner of one eye is the only thing that I can see through at that point, I've got a huge smile on my face because I high-five myself every single morning. That's how I start my days.
Laughter's a great way of drawing you away from negative emotions. If you're feeling stressed, sometimes you're not in the mood to laugh, you're not in the mood, you're not in a good mood, but that's always the time when you need to be doing it. And I mentioned before this idea of faking it to make it, you know, the laughter yoga idea. The science behind that is, like I said, if your brain doesn't know if you're false laughing, and if you're feeling low, that's the time to get up, be positive, smile, make yourself laugh. I think it's really important to know your laughter triggers, know the things that make you laugh, and have those around you. If you're the kind of person that likes having squeaky toys around your desk, or you like memes or viral videos, shorts, if you like jokes and joke books, have these things around you because they're really important. If I see a funny video on social media, I always save it. And, you know, if I'm feeling a bit stressed, I'll skim through and immediately I'll start chuckling. I did it today at lunchtime. And it immediately just switches you back on again, starts releasing those chemicals, calms your muscles down, and off you go with your day again. So, yeah, that's one thing I always recommend. I also recommend as well, because laughter is contagious, it's really important that you find the people that make you laugh. If you go to the people that make you laugh, if you hear laughter, gravitate to it, because you can walk into a room and people are laughing and you don't know what they're laughing at, but you engage with that. It has that effect, a bit like a yawn. You know, someone starts yawning, everybody in the room starts yawning. Laughter has that. It has such a ripple effect, such a snowball effect. So if you're not in the mood to put the laughter out there and affect everybody else in a positive way, just put yourself around people that are laughing. There'll always be someone there. Go and find out what they're laughing at and absorb some of it, because it is really the gift that keeps giving. And the more you give it out, the more you get back. And if you haven't got any to give, go out and get some, because it's free and people are happy to give it out. So, yeah.
And I remember I did stand-up comedy for 7 years in and around the Boston area. And one of the things that I loved the most about it, and I love to make people laugh, I love to make people happy. I never know what their day has been like or their week has been like when they pay their money, come to a comedy show. So I work so hard to make everybody laugh and really enjoy a good time and use positive approaches and storytelling, just like I do in my speaking, in comedy as well. One of my favorite parts, the greatest gift an audience could ever give me, if there was somebody in the room with a very unique laugh. And if I
Yeah.
heard from the back of the room somebody laughing and all of a sudden I heard the snort laugh, oh
Snort.
my
I
gosh.
love those.
I would tell them
They're
right
the
from the
best.
stage, I said, okay, I can't see y'all way out there in the back, but whoever just snort laughed, God love you. Please don't
Yeah.
ever be embarrassed by that laugh, because it brings me so much joy to know that I'm bringing you joy. And we would go back and forth. I would aim everything for that part of the room to make that person laugh because it encouraged everyone else to laugh.
They set everybody else off.
One
Yeah.
of my
And
favorite
snorters are
shows.
great. Winnies as well. The ones those ones that just sound like a horse or a donkey.
Yep.
They're fantastic as well.
Yep.
Anybody, I'm sure your listeners have probably seen the laughter Skype video that's on there on YouTube, and it starts off with a chap who's watching a video of a baby laughing, and he's like and starts laughing this kind of really rolling laugh, deep laugh, and then somebody else watches that clip and they laugh off the back of his laugh, and the laugh just passes on, people laughing at the one before. And there's a guy on there, and I'm sure people have seen it on the viral videos, that goes, yaw. And it's just the most unique laugh I've ever heard. That kind of thing can set people off. If you're in a room and you can hear someone laughing like that, it's just gold. I love it.
Yeah. And humor is such an amazing gift, and we all possess it. Some people say, I'm just not naturally funny. One of the naturally funniest people I've ever met was back when I was in Toastmasters a number of years ago in the early to mid 2000s. And she would always say, I'm not naturally funny. I'm not naturally funny. Her approach and her dryness and her directness and her abruptness was hysterically funny. Her timing was genius in the way she told the story. Now, she didn't go way high, way low like you and I do as storytellers to get humor across. She stayed almost monotonous with her approach, with her style. She never thought she was funny. And I think that was part of her gift. She just was who she was. And I would
Yeah,
be on the floor and crying sometimes, laughing at her
yeah.
material. So we can find it pretty much anywhere. And we had a
Absolutely. You don't have to have funny material. You can just be good at telling the joke. I mean, I did a
yeah,
workshop at the weekend, and we did various activities. And some of the stuff that we did, some of the stuff you do doesn't land. Some of the stuff doesn't fit someone's sense of humor. So you throw in little bits where they can recognize. So there was one part where I got jokes, and I paired people up. And I was trying to get people to understand that a big part of laughter is eye contact and connection. So I got them in pairs, face to face, very close up. And to start with, they were pulling funny faces to each other. And, that was, a little bit silly in to start off with. The next bit, that they've got two jokes each, and they were just Christmas cracker jokes, really simple stuff. And a lot of them kind of read them, didn't really land on the first one. Second one, they start laughing. In the corner, I can hear one couple in hysteria. And it wasn't because they got anything funnier in their jokes. It was just one person in that pair was just fantastic at delivering the joke. And so they said, "Oh, share your joke, Jude. Your joke was brilliant." And as soon as she shared the joke, it was no better than the others, but everybody was in fits of laughter just by the way, the dryness in her delivery. And it's a performance. I mean, I often have to say to people that start, if you're expecting me to come here and make you laugh, you've picked the wrong person. Go to a stand-up comedy routine, because I'm here to facilitate laughter. I'm here to provide activities, exercises, bit of education, so that you realize that you can create laughter and you can include more laughter in your life, and why that's beneficial as well.
yeah.
And if they
And
laugh along the way, that's great. That's fine by me.
yeah. And you just mentioned laughter and education. What is your approach to doing that? And you and I are very similar in this, but I want you to explain, because you have much more of the scientific explanation behind it, how it conditions our brains and our openness and connect with our emotions, how laughter can benefit learning and help us to retain more.
Yeah, it's due to the production of gamma waves. It can make us more creative. It can make us it's better. We're more able to problem solve. There's a part in the brain, the prefrontal cortex, and it's the bit that deals with memory short-term memory. It sits right next door to the bit that deals with anxiety and stress. So what you can find, and I was guilty of this as a child as well. When I used to go to school, you either did coursework or you did an exam. All of the subjects that required coursework, I used to get fantastic grades. All of the subjects which required me to go in and do a 2-hour exam, I always did terribly in. The idea of having to pull 6 or 7 years of education and cram it into 2 hours, and that 2 hours decided what you were going to leave that school with, immediately filled me with anxiety, and my brain would lock down, shut down, and I wouldn't be able to remember anything. And it's because those two things affect each other. If you calm people down, and we know that laughter can calm people down, it can make you less stressed, less anxious. If you integrate laughter into any form of education, particularly leading up to assessments and exams, and you calm people down, statistics have shown and scientific research has shown that people perform far better in exams. They did a study with a group of students who prepared as normal, went into an exam, and then a group that took part in a laughter program, some laughter exercises, and then watched a funny video before they went into the exam. The group that took part in the funny, the humor, 15% higher on average in their assessment than the previous group. And they've been very careful to choose similar abilities. If we did that on a larger scale, I would put my money on the fact that you'd find something similar as well. Because if we go in and we're relaxed, we know, but I mean, you're a stand-up comedian. I'm sure that you've been on stage before, and if you're relaxed and the room's with you, it just flies. If you're going in there and you're tense and it's awkward and stressed and you can't remember your material, it's just hellish. So that's one of the things that I find is that I'm trying to work into schools now, is trying to make the learning more engaging so the students relax, trying to come up with programs that they can do in the lead up to assessments, but also do teacher training programs where teachers can look at how to make the subject that they're teaching more engaging. So not necessarily teaching them to be funny, but teaching them exercises, activities, things that they can do in the classroom that will make the learning more fun and engaging. So it's not necessarily about being funny, but creating fun. Yeah, it's just squashing it down to the word fun. So it's play, improv, drama, practical get-up activities rather than sit down and write activities. And teachers can do that. They don't need to be comedians to do that. So yeah, from an education perspective, I think there's loads of scope there to improve students' learning, engagement and attainment just through exploring laughter and humor. Because kids love to laugh. We're born, but from the minute we're born, we're given a mobile above our beds and we're given shaky rattle toys and people are pulling faces. And we do that all the way through childhood. We're hardwired to do that. So why we should sit behind desks and be all kind of serious, it's not conducive to young people. I think that's something that could be explored more.
And looking back at the teachers I had, I mean, really from junior high all the way through college, thinking back now, the classes I did the best in were the teachers who were the most engaging. It didn't necessarily mean they were being funny, but they made learning very interesting, and they would use a sense of humor or creativity or role playing or something in there interacting with the students, and not just up there just writing something on the board and expecting us to memorize it. And even the bosses I've had over the years, especially back in my radio years, thinking back, the ones that I loved the most and worked the hardest for were the most engaging. They were humorous. They were fun. They were very aware of what we were doing. Of course, our job as DJs, and in my case, a rock morning show producer and a comedy writer, it was my job to be funny,
yeah,
and be humorous and be energized. And it really helped to have a boss who appreciated what we did and encouraged it.
Yeah.
And even popped in the door every now and then and said, "Hey guys, what are you working on? Do you need any help with anything?" Or bounce ideas off the wall a different way. They're the ones that even now, 20 years, 22 years since I've had, a real regular go to work job versus being self-employed, those people still matter so much to me. And it's still so much a part of what I'm doing now and why I do what I do the way I do it.
The way, and that's it. It's the way that you do it. I mean, I was an educator. I mean, I've worked with young people since I left school, but I've worked as a teacher for 17 years, secondary school teacher. So 11 to 18s, but mainly the 14 to 18, so adolescents. My job before that was a theatre and education actor. So I was going around schools as a performer. and I did a lot of youth work as well. So going into schools and engaging in a fun way, playful way, or just engaging kids that are disaffected was something I did before I went into teaching. So trying to work with kids who are perhaps a little bit resistant to learning or need something very visual to engage them was kind of hardwired into me. As a teacher, I was a drama teacher, a theatre studies, performing arts teacher. So again, that really was about performance, play, improv, doing practical exercises. So a lot of the kids used to come into the class and say, "What we're playing today, sir," because they think that that's the lesson where they come in and play games, and didn't realise that actually what I was doing, and it goes back to you saying before about that secret thing that's going on that we can't necessarily say what it is or put a finger on, but it's that magic where the students come in and they think they're playing games, but they're actually learning. There's learning going on there, but it's just the manner in which it's presented. And I guess that kind of links with what I'd like to do more in education, is to try and find ways where even the dullest of content that you've got to deliver can be turned into something really fun and engaging and playful, so that the kids forget that they're actually learning and they just think, hey, well, what's the next game? And I was very lucky because I worked with 14 to 18s. They were all the assessment groups. So they were all the kids that did the GCSEs, the A levels, the national assessments. So I had results. And if the results weren't good, it was quite clear that me playing games all day was counterproductive. But fortunately, the grades were really good. And I think part of that was due to the fact, A, that they were going into their exams in a calm manner, so their heads they were confident, but also I think the manner in which they were learning was more engaging for them and allowed them to absorb that information better, because it was fun. And if the work's fun, you get more done, is what I kind of feel.
Yeah.
It's one of those. If you go into the workplace and you've got a really dull job, if you're with people and you're having a bit of a laugh as you're doing it and the radio's on and the music's playing, it's a little bit more enjoyable and engaging, and you tend to be more productive as well. So yeah, I think that's where laughter really benefits learning and productivity in the workplace as well.
Yeah. Now, for somebody listening right now who might be part of a work environment that, maybe what they do, the industry they're in, isn't super fun or exciting or colorful or creative, how could somebody include you, or what would you bring to an organization or a community like that? Now, obviously, you're not just going to go in and laughter yoga them, but what are some of the tips that you would offer these people to bring a little more creativity, a little more humor, a little more juice, a little more excitement to not just their workplace, but their everyday lives, so that it bleeds into all parts of their lives, which is something that, is the visualization vision board guy. That's my thing, is we need to take these tools and apply them to all areas of our life. So what would your approach be for a situation like that?
Yeah, I think a lot of businesses, bigger businesses, are very focused, as they should be, on profit. A business has to survive, it has to make profit. Sometimes that can be at the expense of the individuals that are working to provide that profit. So I'm a strong believer in a people-centered approach to management. If you look after the people, they will look after you, they'll look after the business will be productive and will be profitable. Some business leaders are quite less so, they're becoming less so, but they're a little bit resistant to that because it's a bit of a risk. And what you don't want is to create an environment where people are having fun, having a laugh, and not getting the work done. And there is this kind of misconception that if you're laughing, you're goofing off, you're not getting the work done. And actually, evidence shows the opposite is the effect, and that people are more productive. They take more care in their work, more pride. You develop connections, cross-departmental connections with people. It reduces conflict in the workplace. So there's loads of evidence to show that it works. I think the important tip is that if, certainly when I get involved with an organization and I'm asked to come in and do a workshop, I'm quite insistent straight away that it has to start at the top. So the leadership have to be involved in whatever I deliver, because I think it's really important to break down that hierarchical barrier of them and us, the boss and the workers. If they can see that the workforce are not taking themselves too seriously, that they're dropping the ego, that relaxes people a little bit and starts to make connections. So I think that's really important. I'd thought about this and hadn't realized that there was a word for it, but I stumbled across something recently and I thought, oh, good, someone else has picked up on this. It's a word called neuroarchitecture, and it's thinking about what the interior of a building that you work in what that's doing to the brain and how that's affecting you emotionally. So, for example, if you go into a doctor's waiting room, what's the color of paint that's on the wall? What are the curtains like? What's the furniture like? How's that making the patient in that waiting room feel? I think that's really important in a workplace, thinking about how you make the working environment more pleasant, more enjoyable, and actually going a bit further and thinking, well, how can I make this more fun, more mirthful? So I used to work in one school that I used to work in. If you had, it was quite a tough school. The kids were quite badly behaved. And you'd go in at break time, you just had a really tough year 9 class, and you'd be like, oh, I need a coffee. And you'd go in there. And the beautiful thing about that school is, as tough as it was, the staff room was just utopia. You'd walk in there and there was laughter, there was fun, there was people telling jokes, and there was a notice board there where people would put photographs on there of somebody else that they'd sneakily took a photo of in the staff room eating their lunch, and it would go on the notice board, and it'd be like a caption competition or a thought bubble competition, and you'd write on there what that person is. Just going in there and looking at that notice board and seeing that funny thing would be just enough to lift your mood before you go off with that difficult year 8 class that you've got straight after break. So just thinking about the things that you can put into the workplace, the communal workplace. The other thing as well is it's trying to tackle in the best way possible what I call the mood hoovers in a workplace. They're the ones that kind of spread that toxic, corrosive behavior, which they're not always aware of, but it's the negativity, the moaning, the gossiping, the backstabbing, all that kind of stuff that really does spread very, very quickly. Laughter has the same effect. Positivity, fun, happiness has the same effect, and it's squashing one and extending the other, because you can very quickly get caught up in that negativity. And so the more people that come in and are fun and are positive and find things to make each other laugh, the more it deals with that negative side as well, because that can permeate. So yeah, that's a few things. Throwing a few props in there as well. I like to just leave, just little toys and things around. But we had these balloons that I left at a workplace before, and they were long balloons, but when you let them go, they go like a plane, like a fighter plane. The most annoying thing you could ever find. But apparently I got some feedback afterwards that they were playing with these things for ages until they perished, these balloons, because there was nothing more annoying to someone, particularly if they were on the phone and if this thing was going round. So yeah, not taking ourselves seriously and finding things that are fun, not disruptive, but things that just lift the mood. Really important.
And you just reminded me of something. Gosh, the last radio group I worked in, this is from 1998 to 2002. We had an office manager who was just a wonderful, wonderful person. She was so sweet. She was so innocent that we could get her to laugh all the time. She had a snort laugh. And one night I broke into her computer, into her office and into her computer. And I don't recall what the standard Microsoft, when you booted up the computer, the tone that used to be there. I got a recording of somebody snort laughing, and I made it so when she turned her computer on, it played that through her speakers. I turned the speakers up at full volume. And I also put a sheet of bubble wrap under her chair mat, the one with all the little spikes in the bottom of it. And I rolled her chair off to the side. So when she came in the next morning, she reached around her desk, turned on the computer. It's laughing like crazy. She gets in her chair to slide it across the mat so she can turn off the computer. Pop, 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 pop. I thought she was going to have a heart attack. She was laughing so hard and couldn't breathe. She had to wait a few minutes to get on the intercom and say, "Steve, come to my office now." And it was the best. Now, here's the benefit of it. This is 22+ years ago, and here I am reliving it right now and feeling the same emotions.
And she will have remembered it as well, and perhaps the people that were around will have remembered it as well. It's laughter is absolutely magical in that respect. You can have the same day, the same kind of work day every day and not remember. If you said to somebody, "What did you do last Wednesday? Did you get a thing done?" "Oh, I don't remember." But you remember things like that, they stick with you. I get former students say to me, "You remember that day when we did that thing in the computer room?" And they remind me, and I go, "Oh my God, I've completely forgotten that." We used to do this thing where I'd encourage the kids to create I don't know what you would call them, just kind of strange improvs where if I was late for the lesson, I'd walk in and there'd be something already going on. So I'd walk into a computer room one time and there was rows of chairs in twos, and the class were kind of sat in these rows of chairs. I'm thinking, what's going on here? This is a bit strange. And I thought, this looks a little bit like an aeroplane. And I walked in, and then somebody kind of came down as if they were an air steward, in role, and said, here's something for you, sir. Your seat's at the back there, and handed me a slip of paper and saying, this is a plane. There is a bomb on it. Do you need to find out in the next 5 minutes who has the bomb? And they've created this kind of improv that I was, as the teacher, involved in. So I'm kind of sat there thinking, I need to start my lesson, but this is fun, And so I'm kind of talking to passengers on the plane, trying to work out, what's going on, realizing I was part of this drama that they just magically created. And I think it's because they felt free enough to play those kind of games that actually the lesson that I was teaching didn't matter. What was going on there was happening, and it was quite magical and incredibly creative. And of course, I'm teaching drama and theatre studies, so that's as good as anything else I could be teaching that day. But it was just that element of fun. We're going to do something that's a little bit different, and let's just see where it takes us. And it took us, to a fun place for about 15, 20 minutes. That's the beauty of injecting a little bit of fun into a work or study environment.
And for anybody listening right now that might be thinking, well, I'm not that funny, I'm not in a big office workplace, I'm not in a classroom, I'm not whatever, and trying to discount their abilities to do this, here's something I love to do. Now, I'm by nature an introvert, but I can cross that and crawl out of that for a little bit here and there to interact with people. I'm not super out there, the loud, over the top person, but I'll go somewhere and I'll hold the door open if there's somebody behind me, and then they'll walk through and say, thank you. I say, oh, you're welcome. And then maybe another person might be 30 feet away. I'll stand there and still hold the door, and they'll go, no, you don't have to. And I look and I count how many people are coming. I go, no, you don't get it. After 10 people, I can legally put out a tip jar in the state of New Hampshire. So please keep on coming and call your friends. They're all laughing. I'm laughing. And just the energy. And then if I go in the store after, I may see one of them in the aisle. They'll smile back and they'll ask, how many people did you get? I go, oh, 12. I got me a good tip in the jar out there.
The engagement has been made, the connection.
Oh, it's so simple to do. Even a kind word or a smile, or if I see somebody, I'll go, that is the coolest hat I've seen all day. I can never pull it off, but you, my friend, that's cool.
Yeah. And that's it. You don't necessarily have to be the most confident guy in the room. And if you are someone who struggles with their mental health, because that's the thing here, laughter is not a panacea. If you laugh, you're not going to suddenly cure yourself. And I listed a lot of ailments that can be treated or provide benefit through laughter, but it's not a cure-all. But it can, as a complementary therapy to whatever you're suffering with, it can have therapeutic effect. If you've got a mental health problem, be it anxiety or depression, that's hard. And if you're not feeling in a place where you want to laugh, that's a difficult thing to do. And if on top of that, a confidence is a problem for you, what I always say, start with a smile. Just try and make some eye contact with someone and smile. Sometimes even that's hard, but you'll find that more often than not, and I wouldn't know statistically what it is, but I would guarantee the vast majority of the time, if you smile at someone, someone will smile back. And when you smile at someone and they smile back, that makes you feel good. There's a chemical I listed before called oxytocin, and it's the chemical that we produce. It's produced actually from birth. When we're wrapped up in a swaddling cloth, all nice and tight, as if we're being hugged, we're producing oxytocin. It calms us down. So as a baby, the stress of birth, it calms us down because we're wrapped up tight. If somebody's stressed or anxious, you give them a hug. A good long 20-second squeeze releases the oxytocin. If you do a charitable deed, if you do some good to somebody else, and you get that feeling inside of, I've done something really good, that's made me feel good, you've produced oxytocin. It's that feel-good chemical. So when you smile, when you engage with someone, you make that eye contact, you smile, and they smile back, that same feeling's happening, that I'm feeling good and I'm producing chemicals. And that has a ripple effect. When you pass someone after they've smiled, you're far more likely to smile to somebody else because someone just smiled to you. And it has that, that effect. I've got a daughter, an 8-year-old daughter, and because I work from home, a lot of the time, or if I have a workshop, it's after school hours or between school hours. I'll walk her to school, and when I get to the school playground, it's mainly mums there, and the mums kind of pack together, and are comfortable with each other in a chat. And I'm the kind of big hairy dad that comes in with his holding his daughter's hand, and it's quite difficult to kind of engage with those cliques that naturally develop. So I always walk in and just smile, and they must think, who's that big hairy guy that keeps smiling at me? But it just breaks down. Often you'll get a smile back, which will lead to a little bit of small talk, and that's when the connections start to build. So if you're somebody that's not very confident, that's a really good way to start, because I think a laugh is just a smile that bursts, I think. And so if you start off and you just start with a smile, it can often lead to small talk, to a bit of a witty bit of banter, and then the humor and the laughter follows.
And for those who might be struggling, thinking, oh, well, it's easy for Steve and Barry because they do this professionally and all that. Believe me, there are days, you mentioned depression, you mentioned anxiety, throw in ADHD, and these are things that I've dealt with in my life over the years.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm bipolar. So I've got type 2 bipolar. So I on a daily basis, I manage my mental health. And have done for a long time. And I think that's part of the reason I've gone into this profession, is that I'm very attuned to the fact that this provides benefit and therapeutic benefit for me as well. That when I'm laughing, I'm on top of my stress levels, my anxiety. And so that's another reason for wanting to share that with other people as well. Because I think that you do get people from time to time will say, oh, my life, I'm so depressed. And I think, no, you're not, because depression is an illness. You're just low. You're just feeling a bit down or a bit stressed. Anxiety and depression is an illness, and it's not just something that can be cured by cheering up a bit. But what laughter can do, what smiling, what connecting with other humans can do, is it can center you. It's very difficult to think about the things in the past that have made you depressed, or the things in the future that are making you anxious, if you're laughing, if you're centered, a bit like when you're meditating, if you're very much centered and you're involved in the moment, as laughter can be, it's very hard to think that way or the other. And so it's not curing the depression or curing the anxiety, but what it is doing is it's stopping that spiraling that's going on, and it's just centering you on something that's very positive and joyful, and allows you the space perhaps to wrestle back some control, to calm your breathing, your blood pressure down. So that you can see things in a more realistic or less threatening light than perhaps you would have done if you were on that spiraling, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, which can tend to happen. And if that's something that you can't naturally produce yourself, again, fake it to make it. You might be surprised how much you can calm your breathing down, your blood pressure down, or go and find someone who will make you laugh. And if you haven't got people around you, if you live on your own, have a laughter bank. Know what your triggers are, and keep stuff around you. Keep memes and videos and jokes and magazines and comics and anything that makes you laugh around you, because just little things like that can lift you out of that moment and keep you centered, and can act as a really good complementary therapy to the other things you might have in place as well, whether it's medication or cognitive behavioral therapy or whatever it is that you're having as treatment from your GP.
And it's funny you say that, your laughter triggers. I was going through a box of books the other day. We've got a local bookstore that just opened up that's taking used books. And I was looking through a couple of boxes of old books. I still have some Garfield the Cat from early in the comic strip, back when it was actually funny, because it hasn't been funny for a long time. Two of the hardcover books that were compilations of the best comic strips at the time. And I can still open them up, remember them word for word, and be laughing till I'm crying here in the recording studio. And about 21 years ago was the lowest point in my life. I had bailed out of my radio career. My first marriage crumbled. I was tens of thousands of dollars in debt, had to crawl home, live with family. And it was all self-inflicted. I can't blame it on anybody else. Frustration, and just it all fell apart. I went to a bookstore one day, and there's a book called Bad Dogs, and it was a picture of a dog, and they had funny captions underneath: age, name of the dog, and the dog's specialty in life and what they would do. I was crying and laughing so hard that a store employee came over and asked if I was okay. I bought after an hour of it, I read most of the book, and I was literally hunched over crying. It was the best ab workout I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
They hurt the next day. That day to me was the turning point for when I started to put things back together and crawl out of it. It wasn't a snap of the fingers. It wasn't the Hollywood recovery of our hero putting his life back together. But I still look to that moment, that one book. Now, I bought the book and I've since bought it for other people who I knew were going through some stuff.
Mm.
So it's good to be aware of the energy. There are people, it's a short list. If I happen to observe them on social media and I feel their energy, I won't like or comment on that post. I will just happen to reach out to them, leaving a voicemail or a video message, being really funny, saying, "Hey, do you remember the time we did this?" And I make the message as funny as possible. And I think I'm doing it for them.
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes later, I'm thinking, wow, that made my day. My day gets better by doing
Yeah.
this. So I believe we all have the opportunity and the responsibility to contribute to.
Yeah, and it's going back to that thing of the charitable act as well. It's a fantastic gift to give somebody is laughter, and particularly because of the snowball effect, the ripple effect. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make the change. Is what Michael Jackson used to say. And I think there's a truth in that, actually. It does start with you. If you put out a lot of negativity, it can bring you reap what you sow. And if you put out a lot of good seeds, a lot of laughter, a lot of joy, even if you're not necessarily feeling it yourself, you can harvest it later, and it'll all come back. And it's a wonderful thing, that. And as I say, it's a charitable act, and so there are chemicals that are being released when you're doing good anyway, apart from the fact that laughter is joyous in itself. The fact that you're doing something good to somebody else has that fantastic effect to yourself, particularly when they're giving it back, when they laugh and it makes you laugh because they're a snorter, or it's one of those. That's it's just, there's so many layers of joy and giving back that goes on. It's a fantastic thing.
And even if you have a laugh that makes it sound like you're a balloon traveling around the room losing air. Genius. Barry, if
Yeah.
people want to reach out and learn more about you and about laugh therapy, how can they reach you?
Right. I've got a website which is laughtherapy.lol, LOL, as in laugh out loud. It looks like Laugh Therapy 101. So I'm sure I lose people because of that suffix. But I found out that there are different suffixes that you can have, domain suffixes that relate to different professions. And I saw one that was for comedy and anything that's kind of entertainment, laughter related. I thought, well, I've got to have that one. But it's laughtherapy.lol. That's my website. There's lots of education on there about laughter and what it can do. There's a lot of different programs that I do. At the moment, most of the stuff I do is organic. So it's been stuff that people in the UK have approached me with. But one of the few advantages that came out of the pandemic was the idea of as we're communicating today, the idea of remote virtual Zoom. We can now connect around the world with people in a far better way than perhaps we were aware of before. So another reason why I've connected on LinkedIn with so many people is that I'm really keen to do a lot more of this internationally. And I'm keen to learn about how humor and laughter works with people around the world as well. So I'm going to start putting more and more on the website about events, virtual events that I'd really like to offer to people as well. So the website is a good place to look initially. And on LinkedIn, you can find me Barry-Taylor-Laugh-Therapy. That's where I am. And you can find me on there. And most of what I do, I kind of share on there as well. So there's
Awesome.
two places that you can find me. But anybody, whether you're in Canada, America, New Zealand, if anybody's interested in doing some workplace laughter or humor or a workshop, I've had to do virtual workshops during the pandemic. So I often do these things called lunchtime laughter sessions, where people with their bento boxes and their sandwiches sit there and we do activities and games over Zoom. So again, that's another thing. You can email me if there's something that you think, oh, that'd be really good. It'd be good to get people laughing for half an hour over a lunchtime, get people, building their morale up for the second half of the day.
Yep.
So the website's the best place to go, laughtherapy.lol.
LOL, not 101. Barry, thank you so much for being a part of the show. I know my day is better Thank you so much for
5 days
sharing
better
your
as
time
well.
with me. And after every conversation, I mean, I just say it, we've never met. We're brothers from other mothers. And I just appreciate you so much because you not only do you educate me on what you do, but you validate why I do what I do the way I do it as well. So I'm honored to be on the same path with you. You talk more about the science behind it. I just kind of do it and try to find that snort laugh in the crowd.
Yeah,
That's my approach.
that's great. Well, it's
Awesome.
been a pleasure to talk to you, Steve. I hope we get a chance to do this again.
We will most definitely. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Pleasure. Thanks very much.